Growing up and coming to the terms of who I am now as a 26-year-old man that I am, I've always been taught one thing growing up, which is don't do drugs, stay at school, and be the best that you can be, right? And why am I talking about this in particular, right? Well, for anyone who grew up like pretty in the 2000s and maybe in the 90s and 80s to be exact, do y'all remember the D.A.R.E program, also known as the Drug Abuse Resistant Education Program? Yeah, I want to talk about this one today and kind of reflect on it because I kind of was like actually pondering about like if this D.A.R.E program actually was able to hit home and actually achieve the goal of actually helping and preventing kids from doing drugs, doing alcohol, doing going under lines of peer pressure, etc. And over the years, I think it's pretty clear that like the D.A.R.E program has been shitted on to the point that it's been actually been thrown spitballs because of the fact that like the D.A.R.E program either worked or it most of the time didn't work at all. And here in Hawaii, it's no different too, because in Hawaii, um, the D.A.R.E program is pretty much like promoted so heavily, even to this day, that like the D.A.R.E program is pretty synopsis here in Hawaii now. And at least in my view, I feel like the D.A.R.E program was able to convince a lot of kids to not take drugs, not do alcohol, not get diving into peer pressure. But if I have to be honest with you, 70% of the time, 80% of the time, I would approximately say with my little noodle here, I think that it didn't work at all. And as a result, a lot of people would end up just going to do something as simple as smoking cigarettes, smoking weed, doing hardcore drugs that I can list off of to left and right. And of course, alcohol. Because at the end of the day, everyone's going to fucking drink alcohol. I honestly started drinking alcohol once I turned 21 and I didn't look back. Of course, I'm not actively drinking now, of course, with my different healthy lifestyle. But back when I first turned 21, I was like, nah, fuck that bitch. I'm going to go ahead and just drink alcohol and drink some brewskis and see if I can get drunk and all this other stuff, right? And every now and then I occasionally drink alcohol, like every so often in like a social gathering, but not as often as I used to because at the end of the day, alcohol is bad for you. Why would you want to drink alcohol constantly every week, especially if you were to come home from work and all that shit? You can do that, but it doesn't solve your problems at the end of the day. And it obviously leads to like if you keep on doing these things, if you keep on drinking alcohol or doing drugs, then it's gonna lead to like a bad lifestyle and all these bad things happening to you in your life. And that's pretty much what the D.A.R.E program was enforcing on kids like myself growing up. And I'm kind of here to talk about today as to, like what their main program was at the time, especially when I remember growing up with this program, and that's the whole like say no movement, more or less. And it's funny that like looking up and seeing if the D.A.R.E program was still available, still existing to this day, they actually had to change the curriculum because of how much like the end result of this did not work at all. And I think it was in 2009 they decided to change it to their whole slogan to where they wanted to keeping it real and make sure that kids and young teenagers practice the art of saying no to peer pressure and drugs and alcohol. And it's like it's cool, it's fine. It's I'm glad that they changed their slogan at least because I can tell you that for the better part of my childhood growing up until this point, I feel like this dare program didn't work at all. In fact, I think it actually caused the polar opposite to happen, where because you have all these little like do nots and whatnots and say not and doing this, it actually caused a lot of people to actually want to be curious about trying alcohol, trying drugs. And now we see this now in the current day and age where some people actually try that shit. Again, I can name one person right now, especially as young, maybe even younger than me, who hasn't tried alcohol or drugs up until this point. I can even tell you right now that back when I was in high school, I still knew friends that were already doing hardcore drugs and drinking alcohol, and they weren't even 21 years old yet to do that shit. Like, it's kind of saying something that I think the D.A.R.E program was responsible for it, for majority of it, if that makes sense. And look, I know I could pop up an article here and there of like what they've done to like make the program better and improve upon what they've done and all this other shit, right? But I'm just giving my 2 cents on how I feel about the D.A.R.E program and how I feel at the end of the day, which is like, to an extent, I think it's effective to this day, but I feel like if you just keep forcing it down each other's throats that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't go into drugs and alcohol and peer pressure, it's gonna lead to like a bad scenario where these young kids are going to be ever so curious about like, okay, why are these guys telling me not to try weed, not to try alcohol? It makes me want to try even more to see like what's so bad about it, right? And that's kind of like the psychological effect that comes into play that a lot of people don't realize with this D.A.R.E program. So again, at the end of the day, I think the D.A.R.E program is still somewhat like working to this day, at least here in Hawaii. I don't know how it is with the other 49 states in America, of course, but at the end of the day, it's passable. It's fine that it's still working, but at the same time, I think it's agreeable that like the D.A.R.E program really was a contribution to why a lot of young kids, even to this day in the current day and age, wants to try hardcore drugs, wants to do tons of different things that involves peer pressure, and it's kind of sad to say the least. So, yeah, just wanted to talk about this a little bit. And honestly, for anyone who's been through this D.A.R.E program, who knows about this, what do you guys think? Do you think the D.A.R.E program did a lot more damage than harm? Did maybe it helped prevent a lot of people from not doing all these bad things? What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Again, trying something new. Just want to talk about this. That's it. See you on the next one. Later.